morning, dear students. I am Miss NAVEDA SHAIKH from Brahan Mumbai Mahanagar Palika MCGM virtual class. I welcome all my dear students to another and interesting session. In today's session, we'll be learning something new and interesting from a science textbook. So let's get started. Good morning, dear students. I welcome all my dear students to another and interesting session. Today's session is for class 10 and we'll be learning science 1. Now, the topic for today is heat. So let's get started. Now, you have already learned a few terms in your previous standards like temperature, heat transfer. Now, all these things that you've already learned is important for you all in this year as well. So, you need to understand and recollect whatever you've learned in your previous standards. So, first thing that we'll be discussing will be what is the difference between heat and temperature. Now, whenever we talk about heat and temperature, what is heat? When you think about what is heat, the first thing that comes to our mind is something hot, right? When you put water on a stove and turn on the burner, it will boil if heated to the right temperature. The heat energy the burner creates to warm up the water is called heat. ठीक है, जो बर्नर हमारी कोई भी यूटेंसिल को वार्म करता है उसे हम लोग कहते हैं हीट. By definition, heat is a form of energy where energy moves from a hot area to a colder area. ठीक है. So when your burner is put on, when you put on the burner, the utensil kept over it is cold, right? So when the heat is put on, the heat will transfer from the hotter area to a colder area. Okay? So that way heat transfers. When you put a pot of water on the stove and turn on the burner, the molecules within the water starts to get excited and move faster. You can see this excitement if you have ever witnessed water rolling around in a pan. Now here you can see both the examples, how the water is moving. That is because of the molecules which are there in the water, which is because of the heat which is supplied to it. ठीक है, हीट के वजह से ये मॉलिक्यूल्स एक दूसरे से उसके अंदर एक्साइटमेंट क्रिएट होती है, दे स्टार्ट टू मूव फास्टर एंड दैट इज द रिजल्ट. यू सी दैट दिस वाटर टेंड्स टू बॉयल. इस तरीके से ये ऊपर आने लगता है. This is because the heat from the burner went into the colder water. Eventually, the hot water will evaporate into the colder air, and there you have it. That is an example of heat energy. Okay. So, these two examples are, I think it is clear to you all to recollect what is heat. Now, let's understand what is temperature. Now, you've already learned about temperature. Now, first thing, remember, if you have seen television and there are certain cooking competitions and certain cookery shows that you must have seen, they usually use a thermometer to check whether the food is cooked at the right temperature or not. Okay, so if you need to make sure that your roasting turkey has reached the right temperature for eating, you stick a thermometer in it. The thermometer will measure the heat inside the turkey to the exact degree. This is pretty much the same technique a meteorologist or physicist might use, but their thermometers are specialized to their specific field. Now here, we normally think about temperature is the weather conditions that is given to us. So when you think of temperature, you might think of the evening weather when the meteorologist tells you how cold it is outside. They are talking about temperature. Therefore, it should come as no surprise that temperature measures how cold or hot something is. Okay? If you want to see how hot it is or how cold it is, you use a thermometer to measure how much heat is there in that particular object. Okay? Now, when you are sick, you tend to put a thermometer in your mouth to see how much, what is the temperature of your body. ठीक है, तो जो thermometer है वो हमारा temperature measure करता है. ठीक है, so temperature is the measure of the heat. This could be the air outside. There could be a measuring of the air which is there outside, or even the temperature of a boiling water. Okay, so temperature is different and heat is different. So let's quickly see the differences between heat and temperature in terms of physics. The definition of heat is it is a form of energy, and the temperature is Measurement of hotness or coldness of an object. The unit of measurement of heat is joule or calorie, and the unit of temperature is Celsius, Kelvin, Fahrenheit. The value of heat is positive. The value of temperature can be positive and negative both. Like when you measure a temperature of a very cold object, okay, it could also go to minus 5 degrees, minus 6 degrees, and if it is positive, it would go to 100 degrees centigrade as well. That the temperature of the boiling water. Okay, that's simple example. The property is it goes from hot to cold or objects. The temperature it rises when heated and falls when cooled down. It is the device used to measure heat is calorimeter, and the device used to measure temperature is thermometer. So I hope the definition, the measure of units, value, property, device is clear for heat and temperature. Now I think you won't be get confused during the entire chapter. Now, another important thing that we had learned in our previous classes, that is heat transfer. So, what are the different ways of heat transfer? Now, if you see this example, it is very clear to you. If something is burnt and you have fire over it, if you directly put some object over it and tend to touch it, so that is called as conduction. ठीक है, अगर बहुत दूर से हम लोग उसके अंदर हाथ सेक रहे हैं तो इट इज रेडिएशन, बिकॉज डायरेक्ट कांटेक्ट नहीं है हमारी हीट से. And when you talk about convection, now convection is the movement of the air. ठीक है, in total there are three different ways heat energy can transfer, called conduction, convection and radiation. If you have used a stove, convection oven and microwave to cook food, you have used all three types of heat transfer in your house. Okay. Now remember, if you have your जो normal gas हमारे घर पे है, जो चूल्हा है हमारे घर पे, उसके ऊपर जब भी हम लोग कोई चीज़ पकाते हैं तो उसके अंदर कंडक्शन क्रिएट होता है. हम लोग उसे अगर उसको पॉट को डायरेक्टली हाथ लगाएंगे तो क्या होगा, हम लोगों को झटका लगेगा, एंड दैट इज द डायरेक्ट कॉन्टैक्ट एंड हीट ट्रांसफर in an object to another object. ठीक है, so that is conduction. Now there are convection ovens and there are microwave also. Microwave के अंदर waves travel होती है in order to cook the food. और convection में you must have seen कि किस तरीके से hot air ऊपर से नीचे की तरफ push down होती है. So that is how the heat transfers in three different ways that we have already learned. Now, in our previous classes, we have also learned about state of matter and how they change from one state to the other. Now, for example, if I have an ice cube, हमारे पास अगर एक आइस क्यूब हम लोग 2-3 लेते हैं और उसे थोड़ी देर के लिए नॉर्मल रूम टेम्परेचर पे रखते हैं, फिर उसे हीट करते हैं, तो क्या होगा, इट विल मेल्ट इनटू अ लिक्विड. वो मेल्ट हो जाएगा और लिक्विड फॉर्म हो जाएगा. नेक्स्ट, इफ यू फर्दर हीट दिस लिक्विड वाटर, इट विल टर्न इनटू गैस, राइट. वापस से वो जब हम लोग लिक्विड को हीट करते हैं तो क्या हो जाता है, वो वेपर फॉर्म हो जाते हैं और वो गैस बन के उड़ जाता है. नाउ दिस इफ दिस गैस इज देन कूल डाउन अगेन, अब हम लोग उसको उल्टा कर रहे हैं. अगर हम लोग ये गैस को कूल करेंगे तो ये क्या होगा, फिर से वाटर ड्रॉपलेट्स बन जाएंगे. ये सुनो, ये फिर से वाटर ड्रॉपलेट्स बनेंगे और वो गैस से फिर से कौन से स्टेट में आ जाता है, लिक्विड फॉर्म में हो जाता है. ना वेरी सिंपल एग्जाम्पल यू कुड टेक इज, हम लोग जब घर में खाना पकाते हैं तो आप लोग जब कोई भी चीज़ पकती है उसके बाद हम लोग लिड डालते हैं. व्हेन यू कवर इट विद द लिड, व्हाट डू यू ऑब्जर्व इज, हम लोग का जो खाना पकता है तो उसमें से भाप निकलती है. ओके, देयर इज वेपर कमिंग आउट. क्या इसमें क्या हो रहा है, लिक्विड गैस में ट्रांसफर हो रहा है. बट इफ यू कवर अ कोल्ड और अ नॉर्मल लिड ओवर द यूटेंसिल, ठीक है, थाली रखेंगे अगर हम लोग उसके ऊपर, तो क्या होता है, ये जो गैस है वो क्या हो जाएंगे, वाटर ड्रॉपलेट्स बन जाते हैं. एंड इफ यू रिमूव द लिड, हम लोग जब लिड निकालते हैं तो हम लोगों को हमेशा पानी की छोटी छोटी बूंदें दिखती हैं. तो दैट इज व्हाट इज स्टेट ऑफ द कन्वर्जन ऑफ स्टेट ऑफ मैटर. ठीक है, सॉलिड से लिक्विड, लिक्विड से गैस, इट इज बिकॉज ऑफ हीटिंग. ना अगर हम लोग कूल डाउन करेंगे गैस को तो वो लिक्विड बन जाएगा, लिक्विड को और फर्दर कूल करेंगे तो वो सॉलिड बन जाएगा आइस क्यूब के फॉर्म में. ठीक है, so this is how the state of matter keeps on changing from one form to the other. So you have to remember this also in mind while studying the next part of the chapter. Now for that, that what we learned right now, phase of the state of matter changes, how it changes. Now you have to take a in order to understand the next part of the chapter, you have to take a few ice cubes. Okay, take a few pieces of ice in a glass beaker. Insert the bulb of a thermometer in ice and measure its temperature. Then put the beaker on a stand and heat the ice using a burner. Record the temperature using the thermometer after every minute. ठीक है, आप लोगों को हर मिनट के बाद में उसे मेजर करना है, टेम्परेचर देखना है कि कितना बढ़ रहा है और उसे नोट डाउन करना है. As the ice is heated, it starts melting. Everybody knows this, right? It is very common. अगर ice को हम लोग heat करेंगे तो क्या होगा? It will start to melt. Now, when you stir the mixture of ice and water, you will notice that it is further melting down, right? Continue the heating even after ice starts to melt, right? Draw a graph of temperature versus time. So this is what an experiment is there in your textbook, and you can do it by yourself also and record it if you have a proper thermometer to do this. Okay. Now, if I have to draw a graph in comparison to the temperature and the time taken, okay, so this would be how the graph will look like. Now, from this experiment, what have we derived? From the experiment, we have derived that the heat energy is getting absorbed at constant temperature during transformation of solid into liquid, and that is called as latent heat of fusion. Okay. Now, it is a different new term to you, so it will take time to understand. So, no problem. We'll again, I'll explain it. The heat, again, here you have to pay attention to the burner, the ice cube, and pay attention to that. जब heat क्रिएट हो रही है ना बर्नर से और वो आइस को मेल्ट कर रही है, तो what is actually happening is the glass beaker is actually absorbing the heat, okay, and it is converting the ice into water. Now, at a constant temperature during this transformation of solid into liquid is called latent heat of fusion. यहाँ पे जो transformation हो रहा है solid ice cubes का into liquid is called as the latent heat of fusion. Okay, I draw this graph in a proper way. So in this graph, the line AB that you see, छोटी सी एक line है. I'll just mark it with a red marker so it will be clear to you all. Now this line that I'm talking about, line AB, okay, this is the line that I'm talking about. So the line AB represents conversion of ice into water at constant temperature. ठीक है, यहाँ पर यहाँ तक ये constant temperature maintain है. ये ice से 0 डिग्री सेंटीग्रेड था ice का और वो water से convert हो रही थी अब तक. When ice is heated, it starts to melt at 0 degree and gets converted into water. वो water बनने लग जाता है. At this constant temperature, the ice absorbs heat energy. ठीक है, so here जब heat उस heat की वजह से ice melt हो रही है तो क्या हो रहा है वहां पर heat energy absorb हो रही है. The ice absorbs the heat energy during this transition, and the absorption of energy continues till all the ice converts into water. ठीक है, तब यहाँ से जो टेम्परेचर बढ़ता है तो वो क्या हो रहा है, सॉलिड से वो लिक्विड में ट्रांसफॉर्म हो रहा है. So here we say that the temperature remains constant during this transition, right? This constant temperature at which the ice converts into water, see here from B to C, it is the ice is getting converted into this line you have to pay attention to, okay. So this is the constant temperature at which the ice converts into water is called the melting point of ice. ठीक है, तो कोई भी ice cubes अगर आप लोगे and you can do it by yourself also, it is nothing dangerous that you should not do. You can do it and observe it what actually happens, at what temperature the ice is melting when you are heating it. Okay, if you have a thermometer, if you have ice cubes, you can do this experiment and see what exactly is happening and at what temperature it is melting. So जो temperature पे वो melt होता है ice water में, उसे हम लोग कहते हैं melting point of ice. ठीक है, last year you have learnt about what is called as melting, what is called freezing. So I hope you remember that. Now let's understand what is the latent heat of fusion. Now as I told you, during transition of solid phase to liquid, जब हम लोग कोई चीज को हीट कर रहे हैं, ठीक है, कोई सॉलिड को हीट कर रहे हैं, लाइक आइस क्यूब्स को हम लोग जब हीट कर रहे हैं तो इट विल टर्न इनटू लिक्विड. ठीक है, हाउ इट इज टर्निंग इनटू लिक्विड? बिकॉज ऑफ इट इज अब्सॉर्बिंग हीट एनर्जी. वो जब हीट एनर्जी को अब्सॉर्ब करता है तो वो मेल्ट होने लगता है, बट इट्स टेम्परेचर डज नॉट इंक्रीज. अब यहाँ पर एक स्पेशल चीज याद रखेंगे कि इट इज द टेम्परेचर इज नॉट राइजिंग immediately. Okay, so this heat energy is utilized for weakening the bonds between the atoms. Here you can see solid के बीच में कितने tight bonds है particles के. Pay attention to what I'm marking. So this I'm talking about here. You have to see the particles here, how tightly they are packed with each other, and on melting you can see the difference of the particle. They vibrate and move amongst each other, and you can see how loosely they are placed. So the heat energy absorbed at constant temperature during transformation of solid into liquid is called the latent heat of fusion. ठीक है, तो solid से liquid में जब transfer होता है और उसके दौरान में जब heat absorb हो रही है for this process to take place, उसे हम लोग कहते हैं latent heat of fusion. Alright, everything now everybody is understanding this part. Let's continue ahead. The amount of heat energy absorbed at constant temperature by unit mass of a solid to convert into liquid phase is called the specific latent heat of fusion. Now there is one word extra over here, okay, but this is a definition and you need to remember it word to word. Okay, you cannot write it down in your own words. So pay attention to what I am saying and listen to it carefully. The amount of heat, कितनी heat absorb हो रही है at constant temperature by unit mass of a solid to convert into liquid, solid to liquid, ठीक है, phase is called the specific latent heat of fusion. Okay, this is heat of fusion, same चीज है, बस यहाँ पर हम लोग कुछ words extra डाल रहे हैं. That is the amount of heat energy absorbed at constant temperature by unit mass of a liquid to convert into liquid phase is called specific latent heat of fusion. Now here we have the next and a very interesting thing similar to the previous one. The constant temperature at which the liquid transforms into gaseous state is called the boiling point of the liquid. Okay, remember, जब हम लोग ने पहले क्या पढ़े थे, solid to liquid, right? Heat जब supply कर रहे थे हम लोग solid को and it was getting transformed to liquid. Now here there is another transformation, that is liquid transforming into gaseous state. This is called as the boiling point of the liquid. ठीक है, जो टेम्परेचर पे कोई भी सब्सटेंस लिक्विड से गैस में कन्वर्ट हो रहा है तो उसे हम लोग कहते हैं बॉइलिंग पॉइंट ऑफ द सब्सटेंस और द लिक्विड. The heat energy absorbed at constant temperature during transformation of liquid into gas is called the latent heat of vaporization. So here you have water, that is liquid in state. When it boils, it gets converted into gaseous state. Now if you look at the particles, pay attention to the particle of the liquid. Okay, so here you can see the particles are much tighter as compared to that of the gaseous state. Now this is all because of the heat being absorbed. Alright, so the amount of heat energy absorbed at constant temperature by unit mass of a liquid to convert into gaseous phase is called the specific latent heat of vaporization. Now remember that there are different substances have different melting points and boiling points. The values of melting point, boiling point and latent heat depends on the atmospheric pressure also. Okay? So there are a few substances mentioned and along with it the melting point, boiling point, specific latent heat of fusion, specific latent heat of vaporization are mentioned here. So ice ka melting point is 0, the boiling point is 100 degrees centigrade. The latent heat of fusion is 333. Then vaporization, latent heat of vaporization is 2256. So this way there are a few lists of substances given to you and everything is mentioned over here. Okay, now this is important for you all to remember, and that is why this is there in your textbook. So try to learn most of the values over here which is given to you in the textbook. Okay. Now you must have seen a man making गोला. गोला खाते हैं ना हम लोग, आइस क्रश की हुई होती है, तो हम लोग ने वो चीज आइस बॉल जो हम लोग खाते हैं, हाउ इट इज मेड, वो एक मशीन होती है जिसके अंदर वो एक आइस स्लैब होता है, दे पुट द आइस स्लैब इनसाइड इट एंड दे ट्राई टू टर्न इट, उसके अंदर से आइस शेविंग्स निकलती है, राइट? So that ice shaving, they put it in a glass and put pressure over it in order to give it a proper shape. Yes or no? You must have seen this preparation of an ice ball. First an ice slab is shredded and then the shredded ice is pressurized around the tip of a stick to prepare the ice ball. ठीक है, ये गोला जिसे हम लोग कहते हैं वो किस तरीके से प्रिपेयर होता है सबने देखे हैं. Now how does the shredded ice convert into solid ice ball? अभी कैसे होता है, ये shredded तो एकदम soft होता है, बट अगर हम लोग इसके ऊपर प्रेशर लगाते हैं तो ये कैसे फिर से एक बड़ा सा बॉल जैसा बन जाता है या फिर ग्लास का शेप ले लेता है. Now this process is because of the word, a new word, regulation. Now what is this? Let us see. Now in order to understand that, we will do an experiment. Okay. So regulation of ice, in order to understand this, the regulation of ice can be better understood by performing an experiment on an ice slab using a metallic wire. The procedure of the experiment is given below. You have to, for this experiment, take a slab of wire and a metallic, take a slab of ice and a metallic wire with 5 kg of blocks attached to it on either sides. ठीक है, दोनों साइड पे वायर के, मेटालिक वायर के दोनों साइड्स पे हम लोग क्या अटैच करेंगे, वजन, वेट अटैच करेंगे. Put the wire over the glass slab as shown in the diagram. Now what will you see? It is observed that the wire gradually penetrates. If you see carefully, it is penetrating into the glass, ice slabs or not glass. This happens due to the fact that the ice melts at a lower temperature due to the increase in pressure just below the wire. ठीक है, इसके ऊपर प्रेशर पड़ रहा है ना, वजन है ना दोनों साइड पे वायर के, तो बिकॉज ऑफ द pressure, the wire is going into the ice slab. Now when the wire has crossed, water above the wire solidifies. अब यहाँ पर ये जब मेल्ट हो रहा है, मगर इसकी वजह से ये ऊपर का जो ग्लास है, ऊपर का जो आइस ब्लॉक है, it doesn't melt or it doesn't break into two parts. Now what exactly is happening here is, जब ये प्रेशर पड़ रहा है तो आइस कटती जा रही है, बट ऊपर का जो टेम्परेचर है वो वापस से नॉर्मलाइज हो रहा है, कम होता जा रहा है, तो ऊपर का पोर्शन फिर से स्टिक हो जाता है एक दूसरे को. ठीक है, इसीलिए आइस स्लैब दो पीसेस में टूटते नहीं है. Now this is because this phenomena is called as refreezing, which is known as regulation. Now what is actually the definition of regulation? The phenomenon in which the ice converts to liquid due to applied pressure and then reconverts to ice once the pressure is removed is called regulation. Simple. अगर एक आइस क्यूब है हमारे पास, आइस स्लैब है, ठीक है, उसके ऊपर हम लोग एक प्रेशर क्रिएट करने के लिए एक वायर लेंगे, दो साइड पे वेट लेंगे और इसके ऊपर से पास करेंगे. You will notice that after some time it will start to penetrate into the wire penetrates into the ice block, but the ice slab doesn't break into two parts. Why? जैसे जैसे ये वायर नीचे की तरफ प्रेशर की वजह से नीचे हो रहा है, ऊपर का जो पोर्शन है फिर से नॉर्मल टेम्परेचर क्रिएट हो रहा है आइस का और वो फिर से एक दूसरे से जुड़ जाते हैं. ठीक है, तो यहाँ पर रिकन्वर्ट हो जाता है इनटू आइस. Now regulation demonstrates the idea of compressing the ice and turning into water under pressure, and then the pressure is removed. It solidifies again. Now let's understand a very interesting topic, that is anomalous behavior of water. Now in your previous classes you have already learned about anomalous behavior of water, which is in general when a liquid is heated up to a certain temperature. Normally we are talking about water. Okay, but it expands when it is heated it will always expand. ठीक है, जैसे कि solid है तो solid will expand into liquid, right? And when it is cooled it contracts. अगर उसको cool करेंगे तो फिर से वो contract हो जाएगा like an ice cube. Water, however, shows a special and exceptional behavior. If we heat water from 0 degree centigrade up to 4 degree centigrade, okay? Now again pay attention, we're talking about water and at what temperature are we heating it? If we heat water from 0 degree centigrade, ice cubes है, ठीक है, 0 degree centigrade पे ice cubes लेंगे up to 4 degree centigrade, it contracts instead of expanding. ठीक है, यहाँ पर कुछ उल्टा होता है. It should क्या होना चाहिए? 0 to 4 degree पे actually उसे contract होना चाहिए, but वो expand होता है. At 4 degree centigrade, its volume is minimum due to contraction. If the water is heated further, अगर हम लोग water को और heat करेंगे, it will expand and its volume increases. The behavior of water between its temperature from 0 degree centigrade to 4 degree centigrade is called anomalous behavior of water. Okay, so anomalous behavior of water is something which is very useful in nature. Okay, that we'll be explaining you later ahead. But in order to understand how this anomalous behavior of water works, we'll be understanding it with the help of an experiment, that is by Hobbs experiment. So let's see that.
Anomalous behavior of water. When a liquid is heated up to a certain temperature, it expands, and when it is cooled, it contracts. Water, however, shows a special and exceptional behavior. If we heat water from 0 degrees Celsius up to 4 degrees Celsius, it contracts instead of expanding. At 4 degrees Celsius, its volume is minimum due to contraction. If the water is heated further, it expands and its volume increases. The behavior of water between its temperature from 0 degrees Celsius to 4 degrees Celsius is called anomalous behavior of water. If 1 kg of water is heated from 0 degrees Celsius and its volume is plotted as a function of temperature, we get the graph as shown. At 4 degrees Celsius, the volume of water is minimum. It means that the density of water is maximum at 4 degrees Celsius. Study of anomalous behavior of water using Hobbs apparatus. The anomalous behavior of water can be studied with Hobbs apparatus. In Hobbs apparatus, a flat bowl is attached to a cylindrical container as shown. There is provision to attach thermometers above to measure temperature T2 and below to measure temperature T1. The flat bowl on the cylindrical container. Water is filled in the cylindrical container and a mixture of ice and salt, freezing mixture, is put in the flat bowl. During the study of anomalous behavior of water using Hobbs apparatus, temperature T1 and T2 are recorded after every 30 seconds. The temperatures are plotted on the y-axis and the time in minutes on the x-axis. The graph is shown. The graph shows that initially both the temperatures T1 and T2 are identical. However, as time passes, temperature T1 of water in the lower part of the cylinder decreases fast, while temperature T2 of water in the upper part of the cylinder decreases comparatively slowly. However, once the temperature T1 of the lower part reaches 4 degrees Celsius, it remains almost stable at that temperature. T2 decreases slowly to 4 degrees Celsius. Thereafter, since T2 starts changing rapidly, it records 0 degrees Celsius first, and after that, the lower thermometer T1 records 0 degrees Celsius temperature. The point of intersection of the two curves shows the temperature of maximum density. How can we explain these observations? Initially, the temperature of water in the middle of cylinder lowers due to freezing mixture in the outer bowl. Since the temperature of water there decreases, its volume decreases and its density increases. The water with higher density moves downwards. Therefore, the lower thermometer T1 shows rapid fall in temperature, and this continues till the temperature of water becomes equal to 4 degrees Celsius. When the temperature of water starts decreasing below 4 degrees Celsius, its volume increases and density decreases. It therefore moves in the upward direction. The temperature of water in upper part T2 therefore decreases rapidly to 0 degrees Celsius. The temperature of water in the lower part T1, however, remains at 4 degrees Celsius for some time and then decreases slowly to 0 degrees Celsius.
I hope with this the anomalous behavior of water is clear to all my students. Now, as I told you that it is important and that is why it is there in our nature, in our environment. Now, how do aquatic animals survive in frozen lake? Now, we know that there are certain regions on our planet like Antarctica, Arctic oceans, where you find very cold climate and it is the temperature is below 0 degrees centigrade. Now, over there are animals, there are fishes which are there in the water. But do you think that every year they die because of the cold water? No. Now that the fishes over there in that particular region, they have this anomalous behavior playing very important role in their survival. Now what happens exactly? Now, when the temperature starts to fall, okay, as we learned that it is opposite. यहाँ पर क्या होता है? यहाँ पर 0 to 4 degree पे the water does not contract, it expands. और जैसे ही वो 4 डिग्री तक रहता है वो नॉर्मल वाटर ही रहता है, it doesn't freeze. Okay, so यहाँ पे जो नीचे का जो layer है, as you can see, everybody can see the lower region where the fishes are there. Here the temperature is 4 degree centigrade only. ठीक है, और जैसे जैसे टेम्परेचर बढ़ने लगता है, मतलब और डिक्रीज होने लगता है, कम होने लगता है, that means it tends to become 2 degrees, 1 degree and 0 degree centigrade. जो ऊपर का लेयर है वो हो जाता है, it becomes ice, it tends to freeze. but जो नीचे का लेयर है 0 से 4 के बीच में, it is water only. Why? Because of the anomalous behavior of water. Okay, it is expanding, it doesn't contract. और उसकी वजह से जो पानी के अंदर फिशेस है, they will not die, they will not freeze like that the ice. ठीक है, जैसे कि ऊपर का लेयर पानी का जम गया है, the fishes won't die. Why? ये जो ice है ऊपर की लेयर, the layer which is there above, it is acting as an insulator. ठीक है, means वो ऊपर का जो ठंडापन है, it doesn't let it enter into the water. और नीचे का जो पानी है वो वार्म बना रहता है ताकि उसके अंदर फिशेस, पेंगुइन्स वगैरह इजीली सरवाइव कर सके. ठीक है, so aquatic animals, they can easily survive in in the very low temperature also because of this anomalous behavior of water. As ice is an insulator to heat, ice prevents heat loss from water below. This helps aquatic animals to stay alive in winter when the temperature is too low also. Okay. If you like our session, please do not forget to subscribe to our channel so that you can share and view the videos that we had today for you. And please do not forget to hit the bell icon so that you remain updated with all the latest videos that we'll be making for our dear students.
session was quite useful to you. In the next coming period, we'll learn something new and interesting. Till then, thank you.